I'm Jonathan Dickinson.
I'm Jose Inzunza.
I'm Trevor Millar, and this is the Ambio Podcast.
Welcome you all.
Welcome back.
Episode 4.
Episode 4. If you're still watching this episode or watching this show, we thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate that, and we love you. Thank you so much.
One guy I know is still listening is our friend Donnie, who we've treated, who made this T-shirt for me. And
Sean, you got to show that thing off, man.
The Ibogaine vortex T-shirt with me sitting on Sean Ryan's lap. Gummy bears
flying all over
Elite,
the place.
Ambio logo at the bottom.
That's
Thanks,
gold.
Donnie.
That's a beautiful piece of art.
Great guy.
Right on. Well, I thought it would be interesting to talk about something kind of topical instead of just talking basics.
Sure.
Because sometimes there's really interesting things that happen. Like Ibogaine will show up in the news. It'll be in the New York Times.
There was a New York Times article last week.
Yeah, because of, sort of the same old story. And then,
so we will call this clip Ibogaine News.
Yeah. And then randomly it'll be like the guy who broke into Nancy Pelosi's like husband's house was like was on Ibogaine and or random things like that.
Yeah.
So
I think the way Ibogaine broke into popular culture initially was Hunter S. Thompson saying that some politician was high on Ibogaine.
Right, and everybody was scrambling trying to figure out what the hell is Ibogaine. Yeah, so sometimes it pops up like there's more than just like the same old story. And the most recent thing that's kind of been like, it got my attention and then it's been kind of like tugging at my attention ever since was the story that came out recently. And it was the Ukrainian soldiers who are microdosing Ibogaine and then going out into battle. And I thought it would be interesting to talk about because I think it relates to some of the things I was trying to bring up about PTSD. You know what I mean? Like, I think I don't know if that's what they're thinking about when they're doing it, but I think that if we look at things in these really narrow diagnostic categories, then we start looking at we really start to treat them as if they're some kind of antibiotic, right? Mm-hmm. Like when you get an infection, you treat the infection.
Like
and
illness.
Then you eventually you run into problems because you overuse antibiotics. But I don't even think psychedelics work like that. I think it's a bad analogy. I know psychiatry desperately wants to find
a fix.
It's antibiotic that sort of like makes sense to itself. Like psychiatry to make sense to itself. But yeah, I've been thinking about these guys going into battle and using it and how different that is from the guys that we treat who are coming down here after they've retired, right? And they're transitioning back into home life.
Is it true for one? Have we verified that story? Where'd that story come from?
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
I
don't know. I don't know to what extent.
Are they trying to use it as a prophylaxis against PTSD, or is it
I think they're using it as a performance enhancer.
I was gonna say that. So, I don't know, but the Nazis started that shit up. Probably before that they
the Berserker, the Vikings use magic mushrooms apparently.
Yeah, amanitas and shit.
Yeah.
So that goes back beyond, right? But so as an stimulant. But now if we go to Gabon, it's really good for hunting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're hunting people, basically, and it gets you pretty sharp. So I think it has a lot of sense, Plus, it gives you energy, a lot of focus, no appetite. It has some really similar effects.
I could see how it would be beneficial, and it makes me sad that that kind of the quote unquote sacred medicine is being used that way. And at the same time, another part of me is like, well, everything's sacred. And
Yeah, I'm sure war is in some sense. I don't know.
I think
Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, I think that's one of the examples how the history or the message of the philosophy is beyond of what we're using. You know, that's the example of the importance. For example, it can be used for negative purposes, but it can be used for good purposes. You know, and I think that's a really good sample of it.
I mean, if I was having to take up arms because there was an invasion, I would probably want to take psychedelics. But I also think that I would be thinking one day to the next. You know what I mean? Like I would be making really short-term decisions, not even sure if I would be around to deal with long-term consequences, but having the luxury of being here and not being in war, I think long-term being in that kind of neuroplastic state is not where you want to be when you're in a war zone.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, for example, the whole history, like the whole story, not history, sorry, the whole story, the storytelling about Ibogaine, you know, they don't know. Or I don't know what they know right now, or what they're telling to the people to use it. So in that position, I think it comes from a negative, right, angle, just to serve it. Right, I'm just using it for you, not even understanding even what you're going through with it. And yeah, and that effect in a prolonged stage, I think it wouldn't be too beneficial too. I mean, right?
I don't think so.
Because now you're talking about a stage where you're hyper-focused, you're full neuroplasticity, and you're going back to a completely traumatic stress, high-level maintenance position, you know, so you're gonna be there for a long time period, plus you're there with this substance, beautiful substance. Yeah, so I think it's the whole story, but that's really interesting, man.
Well, it's the question, you know, similar question is, should you treat active duty soldiers down here? Like if somebody was in the middle of their career and had an opportunity to come down here, what would that do to them? Would they continue their career? Would it make them better overall? I don't know. It just came to mind. We've treated a couple of UFC guys, and they asked, you know, should somebody wait till retirement to come here? And my answer for the UFC guys was, I think it would probably be good to do Ibogaine once in the middle of your career as well to kind of optimize performance. But they're not in the business of killing people literally. No,
and I think one thing is to do it like a flat dose, and then one other thing is to be microdosing daily, and then that stage, like in that state of flow, for example, or, you know, like it's not a state of flow, but that position, that circumstances, right?
Yeah,
I mean, for fighters will be really good for them, I think, to be doing it once in a while.
The difference is if you're using it in some way to treat, whether it's physical or emotional or psychological stress, or if you're using it to just push the limits of the amount and the type of stress that we can handle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because that, I think, is where you run into long-term problems.
Yeah, I think if you're working with an active duty soldier, if they came down here in the middle of their career, I think you probably wouldn't be necessarily treating PTSD at that point or whatever that is. But it might help mitigate, you know, the TBI type stuff. It might improve their performance overall. Based on working with these guys that we already work with, I think it's probably unlikely that somebody would want to stop their career. Like a lot of, you know, so many, I think that was my initial impression working with these veterans, is that there might be some kind of a reckoning or regret around the career or something like that after you give them psychedelics, and it's just not the case at all. There's just no room for that in their psyche, I don't think.
And I think the Ukrainian guys are coming back bragging about how many Russians they killed that day because they're,
focused.
They're having a little bit of a boost. And I can see how that would do that in the short term.
Yeah. And it's a lot healthier than crystal meth, which is what the Nazis were using. Or methamphetamines anyway.
Yeah, for sure. That's I don't know, that's really interesting though.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, like now that you say that are coming back all pumped because everything that they're doing during that stuff, now that becomes a culture, and then that becomes a storytelling to say about it. So, and that brings a background to the Ibogaine, you know.
Exactly.
So I think that has a lot of power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that background of every single substance has a lot of power.
Yeah.
And that's why we have, even right now, some drugs that they're Schedule 1 and we cannot use them, is because a lot of that, you know?
Yeah, because they are powerful.
They are powerful, you know?
Yeah.
And like we was talking the other day about opioids. They're good.
Yeah, if you're injured on the battlefield,
I mean, you want them.
Opioids,
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah.
I mean, every substance has a spirit, and I think we have to honor them at some point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess whether it's microdosing or macrodosing, active duty or on the battlefield, I guess my opinion when push came to shove is, well, I would want the team I'm cheering for to be doing that. Like, you know, if it was, you know, if I want Ukraine to win, then I would say, yeah, you should probably microdose Ibogaine. If I wanted Russia to win, I would hope they were microdosing Ibogaine, because it would be effective.
I'm not, I mean, like I said, if I was in that situation, I might want that too. Mm-hmm. But if you were thinking about how best to apply that, I think that you can better understand what they do by looking at the vector of like where people are going. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it's really more telling the transformations that people are having here because they're going into retirement and because they were not experiencing that level of stress at home, right? Like there's like a geographical element to the experience that was happening, right? And then they're coming away for this healing experience and they're going back home. And so I think that you have to look at that vector as that's part of the quality of the experience that people are having. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't think like that's why I wanted to bring up the thing about the microdosing, because I think it is like a way more like fine line to walk, to try to talk about. But where I definitely think that it's not the right approach is when, you know, we've talked to people in the Ukraine, we've talked to people in Israel recently, and there's been folks who have been looking for ways to kind of implement Ibogaine for treating people who are actively in war, not necessarily soldiers, but people in Palestine or people who were part of the rave on October 7th or something like that, and looking at it like this kind of antibiotic. Like if there was infections happening somewhere and you knew that you had an antibiotic, you would want to bring that there. But I think that what you're ignoring is the vector of like what's going on. If there's still that conflict or there's still that situation around you, then the vector is just not the same as what we're looking at when folks are retiring, coming out of combat. You know what I mean?
It's pretty cool the way that you address it, because it's pretty cool. Like, it's a prophylaxis, basically. They're seeing it's something to prevent something, but it's happening already on site. So they don't have a way to debrief that. They don't have a way to take a breath and to really work what they're doing. So what they're doing is they're still building more stuff on top of that, so that they don't have this room of breathing.
Yeah, you're right. If something horrible like October 7th happened and then somebody was still in a war zone, to give them Ibogaine in the middle of that would be a potentially horrific journey, and you might not see a way out because you're going back into the same horrific stuff. You're right. After we treat people here, they're going home. Mm-hmm. They do have the ability to unplug, to they're allowed to let go of their stress because they aren't going into a fight or flight type situation. But if you were going back into another fight or flight situation and you knew you were, that would be a hell of an Ibogaine journey.
Yeah. And, it's not like everybody's going home and situations at home were all completely peaceful and that there's not stressful situations, but at least the interchange that they're going through has a much bigger impact on the situation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like the change that they're going through is able to bring, a type of transformation. So it has something to offer to whatever stress is going on, usually. Yeah. But in a war zone, I don't know that that's the case. Yeah. I think that it's really important that we look at the experiences not like antibiotics and like some kind of a transition, like it's helping as a transition from one state into another state, and that we look at the vector that they're passing through.
I was just gonna say that, it's like a stage, and you need to pass through stages in order to be able to be prepared to take Ibogaine, right? And I was gonna say, is the set and the setting? You mentioned that in the past episodes, right? How important is the set and the setting? So it comes to that. You're not gonna give Ibogaine where you're hearing bombs, and you're fearing for your family or whatever.
Yeah, if your mindset is, oh shit, I have to leave this building and go back out into war, or I could get bombed while I'm even here doing this. Not ideal at all.
But before that, you need this time, right? This time of integration of that stress or that prolonged period of stress to bring it down, and then you can go into Ibogaine, right? Like you need to be stable, just to say it.
And that answers my own question about active duty soldiers. Same thing. It's if maybe you even had a 3 or 4 month hiatus, but you knew you were going to have to go back into a war zone, it's probably not going to be that helpful. Or I don't know, maybe it is though.
I don't know. Maybe if you're coming off of a tour and you're coming home, there's maybe a way to think about it. But I definitely think that you have to think about that vector, the course of the transition that you're going through.
And then there is the very real possibility that you give somebody who's active duty something like Ibogaine and they don't want to be in the military anymore. There's some old videos of soldiers being given LSD that are hilarious. You could probably look them up on YouTube.
They're very entertaining.
Yeah, they're very entertaining. They start all rigid and stiff, and by the end they're picking flowers and walking in circles. And of course.
Yeah, at that level.
Yeah, I wonder.
So how would you prepare somebody to do Ibogaine? Like, for example, an Ukrainian guy.
A Ukrainian guy would be different from the way...
For sure.
I think at this point, like when I've felt like it's a good time to do Ibogaine, it's usually because I don't know if I can like foresee changes before they happen, but usually it's because it sort of feels like things are shifting gears anyways. And I've already moved into that state, whether it's more responsibilities, on the family level or at work. I don't know, whatever it is. There's some change that I'm already recognizing that's happening. And somehow it helps to sort of settle in to that new state, find like a strong footing, and then to be able to keep kind of building from there. You know what I mean? Like it helps to anchor in these transitions that are already taking place. At least that's for me. So that's when I feel like it's a good time to do it, is because sometimes I'll get into that kind of new state and the strategies that were working before maybe aren't really as relevant. And so they kind of feel like dumb to me or something, but it's like hard to let things go, you know? So I think that those are the moments when I kind of feel
the call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, having been through it several times already and knowing what it feels like to go through it, that's what I notice.
Yeah. For me, preparation, and I'm horrible at following my own advice, I've realized. And this last time I did Ibogaine,
I'm that dude.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. And because
I know how to prepare other people really well, but will I do it myself? Probably not. I'll
Ruby's clicking like.
Yeah, right. I like to say to people that Ibogaine is like Santa Claus. It knows whether or not you've been naughty or nice, because you know whether or not you've prepared properly for the Ibogaine journey. And what does preparation look like? I think it's just kind of, to the best of your ability at the time, be as healthy as you can. Be as, give yourself as much self-care as possible. I'm embarrassed to speak about this, but like I've gone into, I think I'm just irreverent. I'm an irreverent bastard. I've gone into so many journeys without any preparation at all. Like I've done ayahuasca, and they tell you to stop cannabis and don't eat salt and don't eat sugar and all this stuff. And do you think I could get myself to do it once out of any of the dozen times I've done ayahuasca? I don't think I ever did it once properly. I'm horrible like that. And then I'm like that with most psychedelic journeys, I think. And like the time I quit drinking alcohol, that was, it was because of an Iboga journey. It was Iboga Total Alkaloid, with Mark Howard at Iboga Soul. And I drove up to Squamish from Vancouver to do that. And, it ended up being super powerful. But the night before I drank a bottle of wine. So I was mildly hungover when I took Ibogaine. So no wonder all this shit came up around my drinking when I took Ibogaine. And I think ultimately it was good for me because it did turn the focus towards my relationship to alcohol, which I probably thought was a bit better than it actually was. And in hindsight, my relationship with alcohol was not good at all. The world wasn't calling me an alcoholic, but if you looked at my behaviors were completely alcoholic. To a minor degree, I guess. I was still highly functional. But so all this to say, there have been many times I have not prepared adequately. Even 2 times ago when I did Iboga or Ibogaine down here, we had the posada the night before, the Christmas party, and I had a couple ounces of tequila before the night before. So the first time I quit drinking, it was from that Ibogaine journey. I'll explain more about that particular Iboga journey sometime, but I went 3.5 years without drinking at all. And then I started letting it in for special occasions. And then I moved to Mexico and moved next to a brew pub. And there were more and more special occasions. So that last time I did it, which was Christmas 2 years ago, a couple ounces of tequila at the posada, and then did Ibogaine the next day. And then once again, Ibogaine just said, alcohol is death. For me, was the very clear message, which was the same message I got the first time. So it helped me quit drinking again. So it's been, since more than a year now, and I don't think I'll ever go back. So
to be fair, you had pretty rough Ibogaine experiences.
I had horrible Ibogaine experiences
up until the last one when you did more preparation.
Yeah, that's the moral of the story. So the last few times I did Ibogaine, I really got my ass kicked psychologically. It was horrible. And then this time I'm getting ready to do it again. And a part of me was like, just kind of, I think
Getting
the thing
ready
with
to
thing with getting my ass kicked is I've done it enough to know I'll survive it. So I don't even fear it that much anymore. But this last time I'm like getting ready to get my ass kicked, and something in me said, but why? Why don't you just properly prepare for a change? So thankfully I got that message soon enough. And I did properly prepare this last time. And it was a beautiful journey.
Good.
So that's really what it breaks down to is, do you want to prepare in a way that is going to make the journey perhaps a bit more enjoyable and perhaps a bit more fruitful? Or do you want to get your ass kicked?
I don't know. I don't know if even if you follow all the steps that the coach lays out for you and everything that we send you and suggest, I don't know if we can promise that you won't get your ass
No, I don't think we can promise that.
No. I do think that it's worth putting in the effort. You know what I mean? Look for the timing and taking the steps for yourself. You know what I mean?
And I think it creates momentum in the right direction, so that, you know, you might be if you're coming to these substances, you're obviously trying to change something or optimize something in some way. So you might as well get the ball rolling in the right direction. Even if you still get your ass kicked, at least you'll have some somewhat ingrained habits to come out of it with.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, I see the preparation mostly. Not that it's gonna not kick your ass. It's gonna mostly you're gonna start the next steps of what you're going to achieve, right? And for me, I see it like the asanas, right? Like these three bodies from a cliche mode. These three bodies, which is mind, body, and spirit. And from a mind way, I think is really good, which is pretty hard because I know why. That's why people is coming to change habits and that. But the way they just recognize it and be changing the small habits, you know, making your bed, like small things, cleaning your bathroom, all those things has a really positive effect, I think, before doing the journey. And things like cleaning, you know, your environment,
getting your house in order.
Before coming to do Ibogaine. That's one of the most beautiful things you can do, because you're gonna have your house beautiful for when you come back. And in terms of physical body, I think for me, one of the few times that I prepared physically, it wasn't that heavy in the stomach, but I can assure that for everyone, right? But I know you are gonna probably recognize this, but there is a ancient theory about low density food, right? Which is low karmatic food, right? And I know you understand that a lot, but
Thomas Raja, sattvic food.
Okay.
In the yoga tradition.
So and for I understand this food that it helps you to raise your consciousness level, right? So sugar or all these kind of fatty things has like low density, so it keeps you really, really low, but low density food keep you like in a high consciousness level, right? Because it's not that heavy in density, right? So I think those kind of diets are really cool, even that it's hard to follow too, but they will prepare you. And for me, like, I follow what you're saying, because most of the time that I want to do Ibogaine is because I want to change something. Like, that's what I call it, checkpoints, and I refer to that in the fire ceremonies, because for me it's like, okay, here is we're gonna put a flag, and this is an end at the beginning. You know, like I need to end chapters on my life and start like new ones. And I feel really related with what you say about responsibilities. And I think as a man's and a woman's too, we need to have these maturity levels, a few steps in the life. And in terms of spiritually and mentally, I think that's a really big connection between both of them, you know, in the ways that you act with your habits and responsibility, and how you're past that process or that step, which I'm going through that right now. I'm 33 years old and feel still like young, but it has too much responsibility, and I have these two monsters next to me teaching me a lot of shit, and which I'm grateful about it. And yeah, so I see it like, and that's why I feel like right now I need to do Ibogaine, right? Like shorter period. Plus what it happens a few months, but it's just like those checkpoints. So I feel really related.
That.
Yeah, I feel in that right now. And even I told you, and Trevor, like, you need to do it. So And I told you I need to prepare myself. So I started running. I didn't even went to the jiu-jitsu again. You know, a guy almost break my leg, which I even enjoy that, dude, because that's where I'm from.
Breaking your leg?
Yeah, but but yeah, the thing about preparation, I think, is just good to recognize where you're at and where you want to change. I think that's really valuable for sure.
More things of what not to do is I did. So we have a rule around the house here. This is one of our treatment houses, by the way. One of the rules is nothing violent on the TV. We have a Fire Stick with all the streaming services. We just ask that people don't watch anything violent or dark on the TV. So again, with Mark at Iboga Soul, I did a 1 week stay there, and we did Iboga twice in that 1 week. So the first ceremony was pretty good. Second ceremony, I think they were spread out by 2 or 3 days. In those 2 or 3 days, I had my phone in my room and I was watching Netflix, and I watched the Netflix documentary Wild Wild Country about Osho. And it's a really good documentary, but it's kind of dark spiritual energy. So I was inundating myself with dark spiritual energy for 2 days before I did this second Iboga ceremony. And man, it was so dark. It was horrible. That was the worst Iboga journey I've ever had. No, it's not. I've had worse. But so the next morning, Mark and Patrick, the nurse, walked into my room, and I'm like, guys, I broke myself. I've really screwed up. I've screwed up forever. It was a very gray day. It was a black gray day. And Mark and Patrick, who I've worked with them both quite a bit, Patrick especially, they looked at me and said, Trevor, do you hear what you're saying? Because that's something we would always say to people, is you might feel as though you've broken yourself forever, and it's never the case. So I was able to catch that in the minute and laugh about it a little bit and still wallow for a few hours. But yeah, there's definitely things you can do to prepare correctly, and I've done very little of them and learned, thankfully, after this last journey anyway, which was beautiful, and I prepared properly.
Yeah. And that's why, like, for example, in the detox house, we ask the people, like, they stay 3 days with us before treatment.
Yeah.
And that's a really good margin for us to prepare
At
them.
least, right? Yeah.
At least, exactly. And this to bring down the vibration, for them to
anxiety,
rest.
bring down
it's
the
just
anxiety.
crazy how they arrive day 1, and by day 3, they just, the life of the skin, the hydration, everything just changed because of the rest and the IVs and everything. So it's just, you know, it's like this homeostatic state, but even emotional, you know, they feel like, oh, I feel great, man. I feel safe. I mean, I don't know. But that preparation, I think, is pretty cool. And to feel safe, I think it's important to do IV. And so bringing that to Ukraine, I don't think you will be feeling safe doing IV in Ukraine. But I mean, it's just a basic stuff right there, right?
We, when we do this 5-day psycho-spiritual protocol here, people will show up just like that. They'll be really nervous when they walk in the front door. They'll tell me they're really nervous. We have some circles in preparation, but I just say to people, by the time we give you Ibogaine, which is more than 36 hours from the point that they walk in the door, by the time we give you Ibogaine, you're going to be a little bit bored and you're going to just want to do it. And I think we really have that dialed in. We have massages, we have breath work, we have a temazcal, a traditional Mexican sweat lodge before. So there's so much we do to tenderize them. And that whole afternoon before we give them Ibogaine, there's really not much to do. So they are pretty bored. I tell people when they come in super anxious, I'm like, look, nothing's going to jump out at you here. You know, there's no quick emergency dosing of Ibogaine. By the time we give you Ibogaine, you're just really going to want to do it and get going with it.
I think we have a nice retreat and nice program.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, breathing, sweat lodge. Sweat lodge is nice. I mean, for the people that is hearing us, it's like this Mexican concrete.
Yeah, I call it a giant concrete pizza oven.
I mean, I haven't been there in a while, but we used to be there a lot. We used to do a lot with the clients, and we enjoy it. A lot of energy, super dark place, a lot of heat, a lot of sweat. But you feel like you're preparing for IV. I mean, you're preparing for the uncomfortable. You know, like your body feels. It gets to a point. Some things I remember that I was feeling like I was gonna die.
I know.
You know, like all the time to the floor and laying down and stuff like that. But I think that battle, that first battle that you have prior to IVing, it prepares you really good. The next day you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be nice. Plus, open your heart.
Yeah, so many people when they leave or before they leave near the end, they're like, now I see everything you have in this program is perfectly placed. It's all timed absolutely perfectly. How'd you guys dial this in so well? It didn't happen automatically, but it is pretty dialed in now, I'll have to say.
Over 10 years doing this, guys, to figure out. Now, I want to go back a little bit preparation. And what supplements do you think, guys, people should be taking prior to come over here? And I think, like, we have our list, but I think we should talk about it because I think that's a really powerful tool for sure. And you have helped people to detoxify opiates just with vitamin C.
Yeah.
It is super powerful.
Yeah, that's probably the supplement I recommend the most in preparation because it is very good at, so high dose oral vitamin C, which is like 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C every 3 or 4 hours. Reach out if you want the actual protocol, but you can do that. You can take vitamin C like that for a couple of days and then step down off of opiates, and it makes stepping down off of opiates really a lot easier. You can do that to help yourself wean off of alcohol. And then I've started recommending it for SSRIs and other psych meds as well. It seems to be super, super helpful. So yeah, megadosing vitamin C is it's a useful tool because it can help people come off substances. And then there's even papers that have been published on high dose vitamin C for mood disorders and things like that. So I megadose I take at least 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C every single day myself now, sometimes closer to 10 or 15,000. So vitamin C, I definitely recommend. What else?
Magnesium?
Yeah, I mean,
electrolyte.
What do you recommend with magnesium? I mean, it's very helpful for sleep.
For sleep and then for fatigue, you know. But we have find different type of magnesiums, right? Like there is magnesium sulfate and then whatever. But also citrate. But also I was gonna say 5-HTP is pretty good also, just to help all some kind of 5-HTP receptors and transmitters. But yeah, I think what I will rescue more is going to be magnesium and vitamin C for sure. Prior to IV, and I think then the antioxidant effects of vitamin C is super powerful that even can handle with withdrawals, which is crazy, you know. And yeah, I know a lot of people has been coming here with that protocol. We even use it here for detox. We use it IV in large amounts, even up to 20 grams, which is beautiful. But I think those are the supplements that I would recommend for sure.
Yeah, like I used to do a lot of Claire Wilkins suggested protocols, like a lot of GABA coming in.
Be complex.
Yeah, like they would
fish oil.
We would use the Braverman assessment, which you can find online prior to coming in, and then that will let you know if you're deficient in dopamine or GABA or acetylcholine or whatever, and then you can supplement to lift that up on a personal level. So it's just going to give you a better mood and stuff coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think one of the most helpful things that we have is just time. You know what I mean? Like the fact that it takes a couple of months to kind of plan, you know what I mean? And like having it set out in front of you and using it like an anchor. I think a lot of people already know about a lot of the things that they should be doing, and somehow having that kind of thing out there that you're getting ready for helps you find the energy and the momentum to be able to.
Is that, do you think when people say the medicine started working on me before I even got here, do you think that's kind of what it is? Is it's the hope of the treatment that is helping them implement the right behaviors or helping them sleep, or what do you think it is? Or is it the spirit of the medicine working on people before they get here?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, one of the biggest acid trips I ever took, I kind of felt like I was on, like that was the moment when I chose to come into this world, and that everything kind of radiated backwards and forwards from there. And I don't know if that's true, but it sort of felt like a mountaintop experience. Like it was like getting to this kind of peak state. And I'm like, maybe at the highest level, we are choosing that whole arc.
Right.
You know, and I don't know what it is, but I do think that time isn't just linear, and that having this thing in front of you is also real. And that once you've kind of set up to do it, then it's already kind of happened and you're stepping into the field of it.
This shirt, I don't even think I mentioned what it says, but it says Ibogaine vortex, which is a term I always use when I hear, because I hear something similar come up again and again and again. In fact, I was just speaking to a guy on the phone today who said something similar. He said, yeah, I heard about Iboga and Ibogaine like 10 years ago, and I really haven't been able to get it out of my mind since. And I said, oh, you've been sucked into the Iboga vortex. And it seems to happen that way. Some people, they hear about Iboga, Ibogaine, they never think of it again. Some people, it sticks somehow. And then the coincidences happen. Then, man, the craziest story I heard of an Ibogaine vortex thing was a policeman that we had come through here. He had been having serious issues, so much so that his boss said, you know, you might want to check this thing out, and basically pointed him towards Ibogaine. Later that very day, he pulled a guy over who, I don't know, went through a red light or something like that, or ran a stop sign or something. And the cop just lost it. He's like, what are you doing? He blew up on this guy who was driving the car. And the guy who was driving the car said, hey man, what's going on with you? You've got issues. He's like, I'm in law enforcement as well. He was, I think he was a former soldier, and he was a guard at a prison or something like that. And he said, can I get out of the car? And I need to talk to you. He said, you need to go do this. And he was a guy that had been down here doing Ibogaine. So the same morning, I think his boss actually recommended Ambio. And then he pulls over this guy, loses his shit. The guy keeps calm and says, dude, you need to go see these guys down at Ambio. So that was the most dramatic story of the Ibogaine vortex I've ever heard. That guy actually messaged me today too.
He got sucked quick.
Yeah, he got sucked quick. He's actually retired from the police force. He was on the fence about doing that prior to Ibogaine, but Ibogaine really made him decide that it's time to move on to something else.
How's he doing now?
He's amazing. He messaged today. He thinks his story might be good to share on Sean Ryan. So I asked him to write up an email I could forward to him. So we'll see.
Awesome.
But he's doing amazing. Oh, he's taking the Being True to You integration coaching course, psychedelic integration.
Good for him.
Oh, nice.
But so often there's the coincidences that lead people to be here. Like there's invisible hands guiding them on this path.
There is too many coincidences that it gets weird when you don't have coincidences, you know, and that's why it's like we feel like something. I think
coincidence is wow, what an amazing coincidence. To me, they're more like synchronicities. Like Carl Jung coined the term, I think, synchronicity, which is more a meaningful coincidence. Like it really seems as though there's invisible hands orchestrating.
It's really nice. It's really nice.
So preparation, and then should we save integration till another episode, or should we?
I think we should leave that to another episode.
Yeah,
but I wanted to ask you, in terms of social, in your social circles, your family, a lot of the people that is coming, they have problems with that, you know?
With
and
what?
With the social, their families, the relatives,
see.
you know,
Yeah.
their circles, which is, I don't say in English, but it's like this, they can be their...
Say it in Spanish, I'll translate.
Su bastón. They're like the, you know? But...
Like a trigger, no? Is that what you're trying to say?
Not like a trigger. It's more like there's their support.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, but there is people, they don't have this support.
Oh, okay.
And I think there is a lot of people, they don't have this support. And for them, it's hard to talk about this. Or even, like, I remember clients asking, like, if it was good idea to let know their families or somewhere to come over here. And I think always it's important to let know someone. To have someone close to talk. And you make a video the other day about suicides, you know. And I think goes along with that. I think it's really important that we speak, you know, we have someone they can hear us and that we can throw that out. What would you say to someone that it's hard for them to pick these people or this person? What would you recommend to prepare in that terms?
Like if your family's not supportive, kind of thing, or
you're
like, unsure about bringing something like this.
Yeah, imagine you just feel alone in your life and you don't have someone, or you feel like you don't have someone, you know, to trust.
I mean, I guess that's the idea of talking with a therapist, is that it's somebody who you don't have any other type of social responsibility with, and there's no consequence to discuss whatever you need. So it's an opportunity to sort of like open the pressure valve. You know what I mean? And so if you have ways to do that repeatedly, then the pressure doesn't build up as much. I don't know that going to therapy is going to solve everything like overnight, but like having that ability to be able to let the pressure off, I think over time, can be, you know, and Ibogaine is maybe a little bit more of like, you know, like cranking it open. But I think after that, the way that you approach situations that have been tense in the past, maybe you're able to approach them differently and get a different result.
Totally. You know?
Yeah. I think that's the fact we have coaches that people speak to for at least 2 sessions before, at least 2 sessions after Ibogaine. That can be super helpful. But I found with family members, for one, if they love you and do want the best for you, even if they're skeptical at first, they're going to see the change. They're going to be quite happy with the results ultimately. I think the stigma of psychedelic therapy is going down, and I think there are, you know, the research is there to prove that this is not just some quack thing going down to Tijuana to do drugs. So I think if somebody is kind of analytical like that, there's plenty of data that you can show now that shows that psychedelic therapy can be super helpful. And then
I think it's like, I think most doctors are becoming open to it because they're running out of things to offer. Like they're, options. You know what I mean? Like they don't have a lot in their toolkit, and they're seeing enough evidence, you know what I mean, that's been able to open them up. You still get like random stories like the guy who ended up like with Ibogaine dependent on his fucking VA profile or that some bullshit ridiculous. Like that, like after coming off of methamphetamine. And anyways, aside from that, I think a lot of doctors and mental health workers are pretty open to people exploring things like this.
Yeah, I remember probably 6 or 7 years ago, I got kind of my first doctor's referral into an Ibogaine treatment, and I couldn't believe it. But now it's more and more frequent, and people, I've had plenty of people speak to their doctors and the doctor's like, I think this will be a really good idea for you. Tell me about it. I can't wait to hear about it. I've even had a VA psychiatrist work in coordination with the patient who was coming in and me to get him in here properly. He was in total support of it. He's the only one doctor from the VA I've ever interacted with, though. And then I think it's kind of part of, if you're going to do this and there's not going to be a lot of support from your direct community, for one, we've got plenty of support coming out of Ambio. There's a weekly integration call. There's weekly preparation calls before you even get here. There's the coaching we just mentioned. So we try and create as much community as possible through Ambio. And I think if you're not going to get immediate support at home, then maybe that's just part of your journey. Maybe that's your hero's journey. You need to, do what's right for you, even if you're not going to get the support immediately at home. And then so many people leave here, they're like, how do I tell people about this? And they feel like shouting it from the rooftops. And I'm kind of, don't throw your pearls to swine, for one. Keep what's important to you and those are going to appreciate what you're sharing with them. And I love the Emerson quote, "Who you are speaks so loudly I cannot hear what you're saying." So you don't have to talk about it. You just kind of become a walking billboard from it, or of it, and people are going to be like, what happened to you? You seem incredible. We treated a fireman this week who, 2 people in his fire hall came down here, and he's like, what? You guys have changed. What are you guys doing? I want some of it. So it's pretty cool.
Right on.
It's really, the word of mouth is incredible. The results are speaking for themselves, and the word of mouth around what we're doing down here is wild.
It is. Yeah. So if you don't have support, just reach.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Take your leap of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's important to send a message,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that goes along with what you say, like, I was going to address that because it's like hope, It's a thing that I have hope to go and do something. And I think that's, when you mentioned, I feel like that's what the medicine start going on, that you feel like I have an option. It's different, and then you hear from other people that is working. So that gives you the history and this relief where, I think I can relax because I have an option to try on,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. I think that's good.
Right on.
Right on.
You guys are wonderful.
I think there was some questions in the last videos, but I think we can just gather them for the next one.
Okay.
And then we just answer them.
Yeah, so we're not ignoring you.
Yes.
We'll answer them all next time.
Yeah, but whatever question, just put them on there, and you will give you something to talk about for sure.
Perfect.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Right, well, thanks, guys.
This is awesome, guys.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you next week.
All right. See you next
Bye,
week.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.